You guys started, we're starting. Thank you.
Welcome to the work session today, October 21st, Monday. City Council of the City of Trinidad.
First on the agenda, CLP and Rick, whichever order you guys want to give us an update. I apologize, we have a couple council members not here today, so.
That's fine. So I just appreciate the opportunity to come visit with you all.
Thank you.
Just wanted to give you an update on where ARPA is on some things we've got going on. And then I really wanted to get into the some grant funding opportunities that are out there. You know, we've got the Inflation Reduction Act, we've got the bipartisan, I don't know, there's all kinds of initials and stuff and acronyms about the funding that's out there for grid resiliency and microgrids and et cetera. And I think there's some real opportunities if we can be successful with it. So I do want to get into that. Now, you've heard me go through some of these presentations in the past. You know I can get to rambling. You feel free to raise your hand and interrupt me with questions or whatever. That's the wrong button. There we go. Just to start out with our preliminary budget, and we've got I included a copy of the budget in the handout I had there for you. But good news for our budget for 2025 is we're going to be taking our power supply costs are going down about 20%. And that's because of a new power supply contract we have starting February 1st. And so it's a fixed price contract that goes through 2043, and it's just much less expensive than our previous contract. So we're seeing a budget reduction for power supply of about 20%. Now on the other side of things, our transmission costs continue to go up. Our transmission costs as a whole are going up about 11%. And part of that is due to an increase that Trinidad is seeing from San Isabel Electric Association. San Isabel is your transmission provider of the last mile, if you will. So Tri-State is the network transmission that brings power into a San Isabel substation. And then San Isabel has a 69 kV line here into town. San Isabel, it's a formula rate that we have, and we established with them back in 2017. In 2017, they tried to take a really significant rate increase. We filed a complaint at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission against their proposed rate increase, and through the settlement, we ended up getting a formula rate that ended up being 14% less than what they had been charging us. So the rate actually went down from 2019 to 2022. However, or 2024 actually. However, in 2025, we're looking at this rate increase for Trinidad, and part of the reason is your load is a bigger percentage of the electricity that comes across that 69 line. And I think it might have something to do with some of the solar that San Isabel has added to their system. But the solar output being directly into their system, that reduces how much they have to take off the grid. Now, we hope by the end of 2025, we'll have a solar installation that will go into Trinidad's grid. And so that hopefully will mitigate some of that increase. We'll have to see when we get to that point. So anyway, that's one of the reasons that we're seeing some of that increase, and that you'll see some of that increase. Now, along with that, though, because of this big decrease in our power supply, we're going to be able to lower rates by 8% beginning in 2025. For Trinidad, that's about, I think it's going to be close to $450,000, I think, Dave or Linda, that's something I think we've looked at. But by our estimate, it will be in excess of $400,000. So you'll see a nice reduction in your power supply cost once we're into 2025. Any questions or anything on where we're at on that?
It was around 452, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think something like that. Now, one of the other things we're doing as a group is we set up a contract with JK Energy Consulting. This is John Krowski. I believe he performed a a rate study for your gas system here, maybe for the last couple of years. I don't know, I don't think he did your electric system this last time, electric rates. Well, what we did is we've done a lot of work with John Krowski over the years. And one of the things that the NMPP Energy used to do your rate studies for you, they got out of that business. And so what we did is we went to John and said, hey, if we go as a group, can we get a bit of a price break? And he agreed to that. So by going together as a group, we did get a bit of a cost break on that. And so what John has set up is, and again, the members don't have to do this. It's available to them if they want to. And what we'll do is we will invoice John will bill ARPA, and then we invoice the members for their share of that cost of service study. And he's actually suggesting a two-pronged approach. And one of the reasons is with this 8% rate reduction starts January 1st. He's going to he would take a quick and dirty look at what your rates are and what, if you were interested in what that savings does look like from a rate consultant point of view, or if you were looking at any kind of rate decrease, or maybe just not taking any increases because of that cost decrease. He would do a cost of service for that rate decrease just to let you know where it stands. The other is a more of a comprehensive cost of service study over a 3-year period. And so we've got some of the members that are taking advantage of both of these. Some are just taking advantage of one. It's whatever the members want to do. And Dave or Linda, jump right in if you have any comments, or Frank, or board members. The other thing I wanted to update you on is the solar developments we're looking at. So we're looking at 4 different solar fields, and the sizing of these were dependent on the land availability and also the loads of the community. One of the things with solar and the new, well, they aren't really new rules of transmission, but they're far more hard to get along with, is if you want to set up some generation and you want to generate onto the network transmission grid, it's a long, arduous process to get that approval from the transmission providers. So what we looked at is solar fields that, we have land to be able to house the size of the solar field, but also the solar output would be consumed completely by the utility. So we didn't have to worry about putting any of that out onto the network grid. And that's the reason we came up with it. Trinidad was more of a land availability on the 1.8 megawatt. Santa Ana says their load will just be able to do a 1.8 megawatt. Both Lamar and La Junta can absorb 4.8 megawatts. So that's the reason we're building those size of solar developments in those communities. We're going to have CLP engineering, and Ben from CLP engineering is going to has a presentation here later on it. We're having them do interconnection, or what's called system impact studies, because these are solar fields where we're going to buy all the output from it, but they're going to be connected to your distribution system. We want to make sure there's no negative impact on your distribution system. And if it looks like there might be, what's it going to take to mitigate that? So we're going to have CLP engineering. We're doing a cost share with the solar developer so that they'll look that over and do a comprehensive study and look at it from Trinidad's perspective, Lamar's perspective, as far as those system impact studies. We hope to start construction in the spring of 2025. The in-service date is anticipated to be 4th quarter of 2025. Again, with some of the delivery dates on the equipment, things, we'll see how all the dates play out. Right now, that's their best guess is where they can get things going. But what this will allow us to do is, by our new contract with Guzman Energies, who our new contract will be starting February 1st, they're allowing us to self-supply up to 20% of our own load with renewables. With the addition of these solar fields, we'll have 28 megawatts of hydro, renewable hydro. We'll have 13 megawatts of renewable solar and 6 megawatts of wind. So overall, about over 70% of our capacity will be in renewables, which equates to about 20 to 25% of the energy we need will come from renewables. So we're moving towards having more of a renewable portfolio and still keeping the rates down. That's one of the big things that our board has really emphasized is, it's nice, to have the renewable, the green energy, but rates are still paramount. We need to manage the rates. And I think we're going to be able to do that. We're going to be successful with the portfolio we've got set up. And any questions then on any of the solar, what we're doing with some of that? I want to get into this grant, what we're trying to accomplish.
Just
there. Sure.
real quick, this is feeding into our distribution, not going out on the grid. How does it offset? We're actually tracking the amount generated and running it through ARPA, and you're selling it back to us, or?
Yeah, it'll all be metered.
Okay.
Right, yeah, it will. It will be blended with our other costs.
With the Guzman?
Right, yeah, it will be blended. So like now, that being said, we did set up the contract so that if Trinidad wanted to have a portion of the output, we can assign it to third parties. So if Trinidad said, you know what, we'd like to do 500 kW at 1.8 megawatt, we could set something like that up. And so that's something that'll be for a further discussion down the road, but we did include that in the contract. Because we do know that, some of the communities, if nothing else, there could be a little bit of help with the pricing on it, but then there's some notoriety along with it. So we'll have that discussion with the city councils as we go down that road as well.
Okay. And then, not to go back, but go back a little bit, CLP is going to get out there and they analyze our system. We're going to have a lot of capital improvements. And I want it to be known that even though this is reducing our energy costs, we still have all these capital improvements that we're going to have to work into our rate. So
Absolutely.
Well, don't expect your rates to go down. But,
well,
Absolutely.
Really the San Isabel transmission rate, I think, is a cautionary tale. We saw that reduction. Oh, that's great. It's great. Now they took this increase. It's like,
boom.
Yeah, all right, what's going on? Well, yeah, it has been lower, but guess what? It's not going to be next year.
Right.
So it is. It's a cautionary tale about reducing rates. Because we all know, we all see what's happening with inflation, with our supply chain, all those costs, wages.
Exactly.
We're seeing those inflation on everything we do. Now the rate decrease we looked at, we modeled that through 2030. And I think that was one of the big things, because we looked at even a bigger rate decrease, but we didn't think we could sustain it for enough years. So we wanted to try to get through at least 2030 with any rate decrease we took. And right now our modeling, I think we're going to be all right with that. So.
Thank you.
Rick, too, also on the increase on the transmission charges, that's already happening. We saw it on our July bill.
Yeah, it took effect, well, in the July bill, which, and that's one of the other things, and Linda and Dave and I just talked about this briefly. That's something we want to go, I think, sit down with San Isabel when, construction season's over and we have more time and just say, okay, what are you seeing in the future? Are you anticipating, more construction costs? We'll do an evaluation of what that 1.8 megawatt, how that might impact what loads you're taking off of that 69 line. That percentage increased. Your percentage of that was at 23%. It went to 28% now. So that was the biggest mover on it. They did have cost increases, but the fact is you're just they're buying less and you're buying a little more. Yeah, because your load has seen some growth. So, yeah, thank you, Linda. Okay, now for the really fun stuff. So, and Ben's going to get into this I think in depth with you. But about a year ago last September, we hired City Light and Power Engineering to perform distribution system studies for all 6 of our members. So we serve not only Trinidad, but Lamar, La Junta, Springfield, Holly, and Los Animas. And one of the things we saw happening is, if you've been around city councils and public works for enough time, you've seen that there's been a lot of grants available for water projects, for wastewater projects, even stormwater projects. There has not been grants available for electric projects. That's been looked at, I think, more of, hey, it's a business type of enterprise fund. And so, you know, they just haven't had grants available for electric systems. Well, all that changed with this move towards the electrification and, you know, the big push for renewables and rooftop solars and EV charging stations. And so a lot of that changed. And so what we saw is, okay, how do we get our distribution systems positioned to try to take advantage of some of that grant money that's out there? And so what we did is we hired CLPE to identify what system upgrades would be necessary to meet some of that. And you know, it ranged from substation upgrades to aging infrastructure replacement. And I have to tell you, these rural municipal systems, they've had a hard time keeping up with some of those infrastructure improvements. This isn't just a Trinidad thing or a Lamar thing or a Springfield thing. This is across the nation as far as rural municipal systems. It's been difficult to keep up with some of the infrastructure improvements. So we wanted to try to identify what the system upgrades would need to be, and then the utilities for those grant applications. And to that end, the process we're working through now is if the Department of Energy has what's called a GRIP program, and it's for grid resiliency, basically. And it funds things such as substation upgrades, replacement of old infrastructure, distribution system voltage upgrades, those kinds of projects. And what we're looking at doing, and I think what approach we're going to use, is that we're trying to help modernize our members' distribution systems. What's it going to take to do some of that? Some of it will be, again, updating substation, and maybe when you update some of that substation equipment, you put some smart metering on some of those circuits, and just some different things that will result in a much more resilient electric systems that have more resilient to the outages, and replace some of this aging infrastructure that are in every one of our member cities. So what we're doing is we're identifying a package of projects, if you will, across our membership. We've got about probably between 15 and 20, probably closer to 20 projects identified. And one of the things, and this is so federal government, they said, we want to help the rural systems. We want to help the small rural systems. But it has to be at least $10 million of projects before you would qualify for this grant. And you have to have 1/3 of the federal monies, matching 1/3. So Trinidad, for $10 million, you'd have to come up with $2.5 million of match so that you can get this. So we said, well, you know, our individual members can't do that, but we can do a package of projects across the membership. And we are well in excess of the 10 million. We're actually around the $20 million mark with the projects that we've identified. The 1/3 of the match for the grant fund. So if it's $1 million project, the way it's written is the federal funds would be $750,000, and we would have to match 1/3 of the federal funds. So a $1 million project would be a $250,000 match to get $750,000 in grants. Now the other thing we're able to do with that is, and again, a lot of these projects are spread over a few years, is we want to go ahead and spread that match allocation, if you will, over 5 years. For one thing, let's just say Trinidad does $3 or $4 million worth of projects, which is something I think Dave's looked at. So if you did the $4 million, just for easy math, that's a $1 million match. Well, rather than you come up with $1 million in year one, we'll let you spread that out over 5 years. So ARPA will, the grant will be under the, well, that means go to this one. The grant application will be submitted under ARPA's name, and then we'll cash flow that. And what we're going to propose to the board, and I don't think we'll have a problem with it, Linda and Frank, is that what we would do is we set the match up over a 5-year period, where we would invoice you monthly for your match. So in other words, again, back to the, if it was $1 million of match by Trinidad, that would be spread over 60 months. Much more doable, I think, than trying to come up with that all at once. Now, one of the things that, as we worked through this, is how complicated these federal grants are. We were really warned about not only how complicated writing the grant was, but also if you get the award, meeting all the requirements for the reporting requirements and everything post-grant. And so what we did is we interviewed 3 national firms that write these kinds of grants. And we actually had one that was recommended to us by Colorado Springs Utilities and Platte River Power Authority. Platte River serves Fort Collins, Longmont, Loveland, and Estes Park. They've had experience with the Ferguson Group. They were one of the 3 that we interviewed. And so we did ARPA hired the Ferguson Group to be our grant writer. And if we are successful with the grant, then they will provide the post-grant award administrative services. Now, this does not come cheap. We figure we'll probably have $70,000 tied up in this. That's if we get the grant, probably about half that even if we don't get it. But I don't know how else you do this. We certainly don't have the staff to be able to do it on our own. And they've been very successful with it, so we'll see. The way the process works is they will do an initial concept paper. We think that will be due in sometime in the December, January timeframe, based on previous GRIP cycles. If your concept paper is accepted, then you're invited to submit a full grant application. That we think will come in the spring of 2025, probably March, April timeframe is what it looks like. And so then we'll do the full grant application at that point. If you are funded, then there's the negotiations to finalize the details. Put the final mark on what projects you're going to do. Make sure you've got the match secured and committed from the members. All those kinds of things. Now they're telling us that could be a 6 to 9 month process. So quite honestly, for us, we budgeted the money for 2025, but we don't know that we're really going to spend much of it until 2026. Just the way this whole thing looks. We'll see. Anyway, we anticipate it might be released by the 4th quarter of 2025. And so that's where we're at right now. We are meeting Wednesday with what's called our operating committee. It's Dave, Linda, and the superintendents and the other members. What we want to do is we want to get a final list of the projects from CLP's list of projects that they can provide the match for, that they think are the priority for their systems. So we want their priorities, we want what they can come up with a match for, and then we can submit that to the Ferguson Group and start moving forward. We have a board meeting a week from Thursday where we'll go over this and try to finalize some of the details with the board on the approach to this. I think one of the things we may be coming back to, I would think, is some kind of letter agreement between the city and ARPA for that match.
Interest-free, ARPA's going to carry us?
Yeah.
Nice.
You know. you can buy me an adult beverage sometime.
That's awesome.
That's if the board goes along with it. Right? Really, I think the board has really been supportive of this whole process. And because they see the same thing we see. I mean, especially, like Linda, where she's still working with the utility, and Frank, you hear your reports, and you've seen some of the outages that happen with these older systems, and that's just the way it is. Lahana just had a system-wide outage due to a lightning arrestor blowing up this sort of town. We've seen those kinds of outages. Springfield's had several outages because the 69 line from Southeast Colorado Power that serves them went down, and they had 6-8 hour outages for some of this. And so, we need to fix some of this stuff, especially if we're gonna see more rooftop development, if we're gonna see more EV, if we're gonna see, Colorado's pushing hard to get away from natural gas and electrify everything. So will we see some real load growth in electric? I think there's a real good chance of that. How will we serve the load without coal plants and just solar? I guess we'll see. But that's a discussion for another day. So, with that, I don't know if there's any questions or anything. If you do, feel free to email me, give me a call. My cell phone's the best way to reach me. With that, I would turn it over to Dale.
See if I can switch it.
Yeah. So I'm just pushing buttons here. I really don't know what I'm doing. Here, Lynn, would you take this from me?
Gotta be smarter than the TV.
Oh, there's no chance of that.
HDMI.
I don't know if it's one or
One.
There's a bunch of
Why
No.
do they have to connect?
I can put it in the front if that's what it is. Is this one? It just says HDMI. So. Oh, hang on. You're going too fast. It
All
keeps-
right, let's try it. It might be one.
Hang on, hang on. Try that one to the left of it. Yeah, that one. I think that might be it because it's trying. There we go.
Nice.
All right. Thank you, Rick. So I'm Ben Sadler. I'm one of the engineering supervisors from CLP Engineering. We were, as Rick said, brought on about a year ago to assess all of the member systems and look at the physicality, look at how everything's working electrically, look at what really is going on behind the scenes, or not behind the scenes, but the bones of the system, because of all these buzzwords like EV chargers, solar power, wind power, microgrids. There's all these new things happening in the industry that has been very stable for 30 or 40 years, and now we're getting into incorporating all this new technology, and we need to see how the systems can handle it. So, let's go to. So we're headquartered out of Greenwood Village, up in the Tech Center in Denver. Our company, CLP Engineering, is a sister company or sub-company, basically, of City Light and Power. And City Light and Power's core mission is they own and operate grids on military installations. So about 10 million military installations across the country. And everything from day-to-day maintenance to capital upgrades on the systems, substation upgrades, everything electrical from the transmission provider all the way down to the customer. So essentially the exact same thing that Dave and Linda are doing every day. CLP's core focus is that. CLP Engineering, we started as CLP, and then a few years ago broke off the engineering department because we saw that there was this value in what we were doing for co-ops, municipalities, everybody else that kind of had that same mission and same scope, right? Not the Excels, but not the the guy putting solar and batteries into his house, the person in between that's really trying to bring everything together. And so we do everything from relay upgrades and substations, EPC designs, helping with procurement, helping coordinate construction, Everything from just putting in a new transformer at a new building all the way up to complete grid overhauls. Like a few years ago we completed a 40 megawatt system overhaul of, it was like 60 miles of distribution lines and everything else. So let's see if this isn't, my mouse is not cooperating. So just for the main project team that was involved on the ARPA project, Ajay Satal is our VP of Engineering, Tony LeCar is our VP of Business Development, myself and Dalton, you'll see a lot of that from Rick, where we were the primary core engagement in coming out, walking things down with the members, working on everything. And then Ian was one of our junior engineers that helped with mapping and developing all the documentation and bringing everything together. So the project scope in a nutshell was look at your system and see not just what is wrong, right? It's very easy for someone to walk in your house and say, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. But to also look and say, what's right, and how do we get what's wrong to what's right? So, you know, common things are, you know, not radials, do loops, right? So that when something goes out, you can bring power back around the other way, stuff like that. So where are things good, and then where can we improve things? And that all started with reviewing the electrical system, right? Coming out, talking to Dave and Linda, talking to the rest of the electrical crews, walking down the system, looking at what documentation they had, and then going from there and taking it back and developing additional documentation. Where are some system maps that would help understand where the switching points are, right? Instead of relying on that guy that's 65 years old that knows the system in his mind, and then you got this new 24-year-old apprentice that he's just running around doing what he's told. Maybe if having something to physically hand him and say, hey, go down to main and fourth and turn that switch, right? And he's competent, he's trained, he knows how to do that. He just doesn't know where the switches are. So having additional documentation to support that kind of stuff on top of doing the full assessment, right? So that it's a 2-for-1 kind of deal where you get more than just, hey, here's everything wrong with the system in order to make EV chargers work. You get, hey, here's some stuff you guys can use day to day too. So we developed system maps, we developed a new electrical one line of the substation, and we coordinated with Dave and Linda and Paul and I'm trying to remember who else.
Gerald.
Yeah, Gerald, as far as what's going on in the power plant, what's going on in the substations, and what's going on the system. You know, big things that are changing, like with Fox Theater or some of these new developments and things like that. So, and then from there, once we took in and developed that new documentation, we ran through the system analysis, crunched the numbers, put it in the software, modeled it electrically, and then made sure, okay, can the lines handle how much load is currently going on? If that line goes down and we twist things around, how does it look coming the other way? Is it going to be overloaded? Are we going to have voltage problems? Is somebody at Starbucks going to burn out the motor in the blender? What's going on? So, and then once we did all that analysis, we compiled all the results and came up with our list of vulnerabilities, right? Ran through everything, ran through the scenarios, and then put it all into a final report, which we reviewed a couple times with Rick and all the various ARPA members. So each ARPA member had all of this done for each of their systems. So in the data assessment, I won't go too deep into the nitty gritty, but we looked at topology, we looked at how the feeders are set up, what their names are, you know, maybe making some recommendations. If they have standard ways they run the system, so, you know, not just, hey, we're going to run this Monday and Tuesday like this or whatever, but, you know, summer to winter, do you make any major changes? Are there primary points of interconnection that you guys kind of work around so that when a cross arm breaks and a line falls, how are you going to bring the power back, right? And things like that. So we coordinated with them on any of that, and then if we had any recommendations, we also conveyed that back. You know, it's not, the point isn't just to put everything into a report and throw it in their lap and say, there you go read that. You know, we want to make sure that we're working with you so that if we see things that don't require dollars, we're just going to tell you, hey, if you do this, you know, and run it this way, you might have a little bit better stability. You know, if you just flip that switch and this switch. So, and then we did multiple site visits. We came down and talked with them a few times. We went out and saw Cougar Canyon. We went and saw various other things like the college campus to kind of get a better idea of some of that infrastructure that is what you could consider major infrastructure, but it may not be owned by the city, but it still has to be accounted for to know how things are running for your customers as well, right? Because it's very easy to say, oh, everything's okay up until the point of interconnection, and then, well, how okay is it, right? Because we don't want a large customer connected to your system coming and complaining because all of a sudden we recommended something that didn't work for them as well. So we tried to go a little deeper than that. So with that, we took into consideration the historical loading of the system. And the interesting thing about the Trinidad system compared to other systems is your winter peaks and your summer peaks are relatively consistently the same. Like you do get that general up and down trend every 6 months. Most systems tend to bottom out or at least stay lower in the winter because there's a lot of natural gas stoves, a lot of natural gas furnaces and things like that. But there are loads in Trinidad that keep the winter load, the electrical winter load, almost as high as the summer load. And so it's kind of an interesting little tidbit about the Trinidad system. And it's kind of a mirrored on the usage too, right? It does not a ton of AC load in the summer, not a ton of heating load in the winter. It's relatively balanced. Things stay relatively consistent. So it's got a nice load profile in comparison to some other systems that you have to take into account those really high peaks in load in July, and then it's really low for the rest of the year. So you have to overbuild your infrastructure to handle that, but you're not really capitalizing on running the power through it most of the year. Trinidad's system is much more smooth, so to speak. And then from the historical loading, we got with Dave and Linda, and we talked about, well, where are new things coming in, right? You know, it's one thing to look at how things have been running, but the whole point of this is to make sure that everything that's going to be coming or will be here needs to be accounted for, right? And so certain, new gas stations with large services, new subdivisions, any new services that are going to be upgraded because they're adding EV chargers, they're adding new HVAC, whatever. Some of those on these smaller systems can really have an impact. And so what we wanted to do was account for all of that and pull that into the analysis so that when we're talking about switching things, it's not just good for tomorrow or Tuesday, but it's good for 2025 and 2026, right? As what the system will be in a year or 2 or 3 or 4. So, and then, during those site visits, we developed a new one line, which Dave, I think we already gave to you. Obviously, we gave it to you in the report, but some members have already put it up in their power plants and their substations and are using it. And as an engineer, it's like, hey, yeah, all right, that's good job. So this just basically outlines everything from San Isabel coming in at the substation down, going out of the substation and power plant out onto the system, so that when you have to do something inside of the substation for maintenance or for alternate switching or whatever it may be, they have a clear map and not just the knowledge of the guy that's been here for 30 years and has worked on every piece. So everybody has the same information and can work cleanly and clearly with it. So we've got that. I'm not going too fast, am I? I know some of this is I'm trying not to dive down the technical rabbit hole, so I keep myself moving a little faster to stay out of there. So is there any questions so far? No? Okay. In addition to that, so we looked inside of the substation, and then we came out into the system for the 13.8 kV and the 4160 volt feeders. And so the central part of town is primarily 4160 volt, which is all the other colors. And then the outsides of town are primarily the 13.8 kV. And so the primary reason for mapping this is because we need to know how it's physically constructed, right? We need to know lengths on cables in order to do calculations on voltage drop, so that we know when you tie certain things together, is someone down here still going to have adequate service, or are there going to be problems? If you're making any major changes or adding major services in here, is the cable coming out of the power plant going to be overloaded, or are we still okay? And so the only way to know that is to physically map it. So we took the existing maps that they were using and then brought them up to current, you could say, industry standards. Most utilities nowadays are using more of a GIS mapping system. And so it allows you to get very accurate and include any kind of data you want in it. And so we kind of got a head start on that. pulled everything in, drew it in, and then used this, the physical data, to develop the electrical models so that we could run the calculations. And that's where we came up with, if this transformer is going to get loaded to 80%, or this cable is going to become overloaded if you do this and that and the other, and dug into those technical vulnerabilities, everything that's going on with the system, holistically at the high level, and then digging into each one of those problems and providing an assessment on each one. And so, for anybody that knows electrical modeling, it was with ETAP. So then with the ETAP model, we ran primarily load flow and short circuit analysis. Load flow is to make sure that you're not going to overload any equipment. Just like a water pipe, if you put too much pressure in it, it can blow up. So with an electrical cable, you put too much on it, it'll blow up. And so doing load flow analysis and short circuit analysis, basically, load flow analysis is for when my system's operating the way I want it to operate, everything's still going to be okay. Short circuit analysis is to make sure that when my system breaks, only that piece breaks. Nothing else breaks upstream. And so, when you have a line fall on the road, this is making sure that your circuit breaker doesn't blow up because it was too much power, right? So we ran both of those analyses on the full model through a range of switching scenarios on the system under the peak loads of the system, as it's known and as what we had discussed for future loads with Dave and Linda. So from those analyses, that's where we dove into the vulnerabilities, right? We identified how's the system performing and where are the areas, whether it's physically, electrically, operationally, where are the problems at? Because at the end of the day, you want to find the problem before it really becomes a problem, before you go spend $2 million on EV chargers and you can't run them, right? So in here, we listed in the report, there's a whole plethora of them, but the whole point of this is not to say like this system hasn't been updated or it's not been keeping up to date or any of that. It's merely to highlight that for all of these new things, the dynamic shifts in the industry, it hasn't been seen in 40 or 50 years. Ever since the 70s and the energy crisis, when everybody went to running off of big power plants and putting in all these substations and stuff, there's a lot of infrastructure in the US that was built in the 70s alone that is still running. And it's not necessarily bad infrastructure, but just like with a 50-year-old car, if you're still running on it, it's only a matter of time before it's going to give up. And it's old and it's tired, and you want to identify that and then talk about what are the options to make sure that you don't have that citywide outage and all of that hoopla that went with an old piece of equipment that failed. So certain things like the substation and the substation transformers, those are the biggest, highest visible items in the system because it's the one device that's providing power to the system, right? So obviously highlighting certain things like old oil-filled circuit breakers, how much the transformers are loaded, if anything's rusting or old poles that are all cracked and ready to fall over, all of that stuff is encompassed in there. And so another thing that's kind of in there is talking about as systems are built over the years, they really get, I don't want to say band-aided, but it's almost like putting paint on top of paint on top of paint, where you built this section and then you added onto it and then you added onto it, and next thing you know, you got this Rube Goldberg machine that's running, and you can, with a project, you can clean that up, simplify it, and get rid of all that risk of all those pieces that if one of them doesn't line up, it's going to fall apart. And so those are some things that are identified in the vulnerabilities too, right? It's not a problem necessarily, but it's vulnerable to failure because there's so many things that have to work in series, working together, and if one of them fails, the whole thing falls apart. So I'm not saying that's like, I'm not trying to snake oil you or anything. I'm just saying, trying to provide some context that vulnerabilities and recommendations don't necessarily mean it's a bad system. It just means these are things you can improve to make sure that you don't have that major catastrophic failure that puts you on news on the whole Front Range. So, but then we did that for the substations and the distribution feeders, right? So one of the biggest things that's very obvious is, I don't know how many people in here are electrical people, but the higher your voltage is, the farther you can push it. right? It's like water pressure. If I'm running at 500 PSI versus 50 PSI, I can push that water way farther with a higher number. And the actual loads of everybody tapping off of that line are less impactful at a higher voltage. So when you have a lower voltage like you do in downtown, you get really limited in how far you can reach out, and then also on how much you can put in there just because of having to maintain that pressure. And so that's one of the main ones with the distribution feeders, is trying to relieve some of that load off of that system, because you have a lot of new things with the, do you guys call it the riverfront development, or?
American Road.
Yeah, the new bars and hotels and all that stuff is going right on that old system, right? So pulling some of the fringe things off to allow for that old system to still absorb that without it all just kind of like backing it into a corner, so to speak. So, but anyways, before I go too far down that rabbit hole. So again, all of that and assessments and the vulnerabilities and the recommendations and everything was tied into the fact that the entire industry is moving in these new technologies, right? These Teslas you see on the road, and these guys that are making little microgrids in their house with their solar panels and their batteries. There's all these new buzzwords in the industry, and it's because right now the industry's, we had the dot-com bubble in the 2000s. Right now we're having this renewable energy shift and this whole dynamic in the industry. And a lot of that is kicking up electrification, conversion from natural gas to electric in your houses and in like new apartment complexes and things like that. Trying to figure out how to run off of renewable energy only. Well, we don't get solar at night, right? So a lot of people start talking about how do we store all that extra energy from the daytime so we can use it at night when we need it. And that comes with like energy storage. Generation with gas, wind, solar, all the EVs. These are all things that impact your system because all of your customers are going to start chasing these things, right? And so we have to get out in front of it. The vulnerabilities and recommendations take these into account as well. So that it says on that 4160 volt system downtown, if you want to throw in a level 3 DC charger from Tesla, it's not going to like it. So you might want to do a few things to prep yourself so that you can handle that, so that when all the kids are at Sonic and their Teslas in 5 years, they can handle it, and it's not going to make the theater or somebody else around the corner lose power. So taking all of that into account with the vulnerabilities then takes us into where we developed the construction work plans, and we coordinated with Rick and all the members to prioritize them. So there were 3 primary sections, where priority 1 was really, these are the things that are going to cause the greatest impact, whether it's safety, reliability. Reliability can be tied directly into safety. If we're not maintaining the hospital and they're always running off of their generators, that becomes a major problem, right? So reliability and safety are very heavily tied in together, but we had to break that apart even more because then we just had one lump of all these projects. So life, health, safety, and system failure, right? If, my grandpa's at the old folks' home, pardon my words, but running off of his oxygen machine and he's losing power and they're having to figure that out because they don't have reliable power, it can kind of bounce back and forth, right, between reliability and life and safety. So some of these projects in these lists could go in any chunk, any group. And that's why when working with Rick and the members, there may be like picks of, hey, in this, planning for trying to get some money from what the city wants to do versus some of the federal funding or state funding, things might fall in different baskets, not only because of dollars, but urgency and impacts to the system around you, right? The other people in the neighborhood. So we organized them, and then we put together high-level scopes and budgetary estimates. And I handed out a few. I've got a couple extras if anybody wants them. But basically, it's the who, what, where, when, why, right? This is what is going on. This is the vulnerability that was identified. This is what the project is scope-wise, whether it's replace a piece of equipment or bring another line around this way so that you can tie these together and have some redundancy. And then a high-level budgetary cost based on current market conditions. And then the duration, right? Because one of the major things in the industry nowadays is, okay, I want to go buy that. Well, you're going to have to wait 2 years because it's going to take that long for it to be built. So, we also want to make sure all of those things are accounted for in the planning, whether it's in Dave and Linda's planning, or in Rick's planning, or in, hey, 10 years from now, what if we're at 50% more people? How are we going to handle that? So we took all of that and put it into that system report that I printed off. And so I did not include all of the analysis results or all of the maps. I just included a few of them, because otherwise that would be like 6 times as thick. So it's got all those annoying print-offs from that electrical software. So they can get very number intensive. So provided the reports, reviewed those a few times at a preliminary, pre-final, and then we're cleaning up just a little QA/QC on them for the final, so that Rick and them can take everything, put bunch it together, and try to go after $10 million worth of free money. So, and then I just kind of put up some of these work plans on here. Some of them, Dave, you're already actually addressing, especially the low-hanging fruit. It's like one of the very first ones that we coordinated with Dave in these lists of the work plans was to finish the feeder 1 and 2 undergrounds. And that's because 99% of that work to get those there was done. So it was maybe a couple days of some crews and a little bit of materials, and then we can get feeders 1 and 2 underground and off of that main pole line coming out of the sub, and you've just increased your resiliency and your redundancy by almost 50%, right? Because that's 2 feeders out of the sub out of the 4 that are 4160. So we tried to prioritize these as best we could between criticality, like if this thing breaks, you're going to be up a creek without a paddle, versus what's going to be the easy thing they can get tomorrow that maybe they don't even need to go get funding for. But they still need to know how long is it going to take to get the equipment, what's the reasonable price to do this, so on and so forth. So in this list, we've got everything from rerouting a couple feeders to replacing the main substation transformer, or putting in a new one at that new San Isabel site, right? So if you get 2 transformers in parallel, if one of them goes out, the whole town doesn't go down. You just get a blink and everybody's still up, and then you deal with the problem, because you've got a 40-year-old transformer. Maybe it just needs some new oil, maybe it needs to be rewound, maybe you need a new transformer. But the idea being addressing all those vulnerabilities with these work plans. And there's about 30 per member. So we put together about 180 of these. They can be a little, I want to say redundant, because it'll say like feeder 1 do this and feeder 2 do this. So if you guys have any questions on any of this, feel free to reach out to me, Dave, if anybody has any questions, like wanting more explanation of what is the difference between these two as you guys get into some of these projects. We're more than happy to elaborate and say, well, they look the same, but this one is on this side of the town and that one's on that side of town. This is what this means. So I know that there's about 70 pages of report there, so most of you will probably go put it in your desk and never look at it again. So, good. Priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. And then, as Rick alluded to, there's still more things going on. So we are buttoning up this phase of the analysis, and then we're moving on to the next phase to help put together deeper dives on some of those projects, taking out of that 160 or 180 that we put together for all of the members and boiling down to maybe 20, and then taking those to the next level, getting more details, getting dialed in sizing on all the components, getting a little bit better documentation so that it meets the requirements of any external funding, and so on and so forth. And so that's like where we're at right now, is continuing to support those next steps, detailing those out a little bit more, and then additional things we're helping out with, like looking into the solar. If we're going to tie in solar, how's that going to affect the system? There's a lot of technical that goes along with that in terms of how's the load going to flow, who's going to get what. Is it going to create any inconsistencies in my power? Is it going to make the lights flicker? All that kind of stuff. So digging into that, making sure, putting that there is not going to be a problem, but you're going to need these pieces of equipment to make sure it works right. So that's kind of the next step, looking into some additional external projects for some clients, some of the ARPA members, and then also some of the members are already having us come out and help out with little things. So we have, like, looking at a transformer for one of the members right now because they have a piece on the transformer that hasn't worked right for years. And unfortunately, being one of the little guys, trying to get the big guys to come look at your stuff can be a pain in the butt, right? So when you're dealing with a 2 megawatt or 5 megawatt transformer, and you're talking to a company that's like, oh, well, I only work on 200 megawatt transformers, it can be hard to get that support. So we're here to provide that as well. So not only to do the analyses, but if we need, you know, hey, we really want to get some of this smart technology in the substation, but we don't know who to go to, we can handle all of that, whether it's pointing you in the right direction or doing it ourselves. So that's some of the ongoing support that we're doing, as well as helping either connect you or helping solve the problem for you. So, but yeah, I was trying to speed up a little bit. I didn't want to spend too much time in the technical stuff. So, anyways, anybody have any questions about CLPE and what we did and helping out Rick?
There's a budget sheet in here.
That is a summary that is to take all of those pages that had, it's all the same details, but it's in a table format. And that's so that you can sit there and highlight and say, okay, yeah, this $50,000 project, yeah, I think this is viable, but this $4 million project, we're really going to have to think about, you know, is this something we want to do? Is this something we need Rick's help with? Is this something, you know, we can do this, we just need to plan it out over the next 5 years or whatever it may be. So it's to summarize it and put it in a more easy to manage format.
Right.
It's hard to do it when it's on 20 different pages.
Right, and there, you had like 1, 2, and 3 kind of priorities.
Yeah, you'll see.
Is that in here too?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep. So there, each one of them is P1 dot something. And so, like,
Yeah.
P1 is priority 1.
Okay.
P2 is priority 2.
Yeah, makes sense.
So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you, going through our system, you owe me, OMG?
No, not OMG.
What would you say if not OMG?
No, I will say some other members had some pretty old equipment that we walked in and went, no, I don't want it. So, no, it was nothing like that. There's definitely some components that we sit there and say, wow, this thing's still running. Like they you know, the phrase, they don't build them like they used to, sometimes it's true. But at the end of the day, you know, everything gets old. Everything, whether it's wood that's rotting or oil that's leaking, or, you know, it's like an old pickup truck. Once you load it up too much, eventually it's going to break. And so the idea is to try to get in front of it and get ready for the new truck before the old one breaks. And so there's some things that you can do. There's multiple approaches, right? Just replace things and go buy new stuff and put it in. Or how can we kind of slowly shift the system into a better dynamic while still using that as long as possible? So that's where that redundancy and resiliency comes in, is like maybe we just go buy something to put in tandem with that so that we can still use it and use it to extend the life of the new one and then get more bang for our buck. And then when that fails, we've already got the new one, right? So taking into account stuff like that, you know, using the old truck while you're driving the new truck. Use the old truck to go get the hay, use the new truck to go to church. So, stuff like that. But yeah, no OMGs.
Okay.
Just like, wow, all right. Still running.
How long have you been in business?
So CLP started out as an electrical contracting company back in the 70s. And then they got into the utility privatization business in the 2000s, like around 2009, I want to say. And started doing all that, and then we got up to about 10 military installations with a total of 60 substations and about, I want to say about 250 megawatts of load by 2018. And that's when we got our engineering team up to enough people where it was like, hey, there's a lot of tools here. And so in 2020 to 2022, that's when we broke apart, not broke apart, but took the engineering group and made it an LLC, so that, because Excel's not going to go subcontract for people, right? So by LLCing the engineering group, CLP is still our primary client. Like day in and day out, we still support those systems. And the benefit of that is we talk to linemen daily. Like we go out there, you know, we rub elbows with them. We're out there telling them, hey, can you wire that up? And they're making jokes about us being engineers and everything else. So the engineering group has been around since 2009 as a part of that company. The operations and maintenance portion of that company has been around since essentially the 70s. And we work together to kind of learn from each other every day. So, but does that kind of answer your question? Because it's changed multiple times, just like any company. But any other questions? Good.
It sounds like you'll be there to help us
Absolutely.
put together a plan to go for $10 million. ARPA's going to carry us, so we're all good.
Yeah. Well, bro, you just said.
No, appreciate the presentation.
Of course.
Very
Yeah, and
insightful.
again, if you guys have any questions, you know, feel free to reach out. Dave's got my information. I've got business cards if anybody wants one. But so, are you good, Rick?
Yep.
Did you have anything you wanted to add?
You did.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
We might need a change in technology there, Linda, for
I think she's going to use it too.
All right.
See, this is probably this is why, isn't it?
Yes.
I think that one's yours. Is that yours?
Nope.
That's part of the TV.
Yeah, there you go.
I guess I can scoot down, huh?
oh, now you said.
It's very cool over there.
That was like you were getting a little too close.
That was fun. Snuggle.
How are you?
Doing well. How are y'all doing? Good to see you. Good to see you, sir.
Besides, your stomach's growling. Have you
I like the cheese with cheese. I didn't know you could hear it. Sorry.
Yeah, you know you're sitting close if you hear it.
Are we ready?
Ready?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, go for
Want
it.
us to go ahead?
Sure.
Well, good afternoon, council members. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here today. My name is Rhonda Epper, and I'm the president at Trinidad State College. And I'm joined by my colleague, Christine Loudon, who is executive director of Emergent Campus. And we are here to give you kind of an overview of Emergent Campus and what we've been up to lately with the opening of our new location in Trinidad. So I'll start out by giving you just a little bit of background for how the college came to be involved with Emergent Campus and kind of the journey that we've been on for the last couple of years. So we first learned about Emergent Campus about 2 years ago, and we heard about the work that they were doing up in Florence, and that's where they're based, in Florence and Canyon City, and the success that they were having with attracting businesses and launching businesses out of their business incubator. They have launched 30 or 40 companies out of the business incubator. They currently have about 25 located within the Emergent Campus. Created hundreds of new jobs within Fremont County. We also heard about the high-tech businesses from Denver that were opening satellite offices within the Emergent Campus, as well as remote workers, what they call location-neutral workers, moving to Fremont County because of the support that they could receive within the Emergent Campus, and being able to network and get to know other innovators and entrepreneurs and remote workers. And what was really exciting for us, or for me, from the college's standpoint, was learning about how they've been able to reach into the local school districts in Florence and Canyon City High School to really start developing a workforce pipeline for the technology sector and introducing this new career opportunity to young people who may not have ever considered working in a technology field because it hasn't typically been a career path for kids in Fremont County. And to see that kind of pipeline that they've been able to develop with young people to give them a pathway to a high-wage job opportunity and support them through internships, both in high school and on through their pathway into college programs at Pueblo Community College is who their hire-in partner is. Just a really nice model. So we approached Emergent Campus and asked them about the possibility of replicating what they're doing in Fremont County here in Trinidad. We wrote for a grant through OEDIT, the Office of Economic Development in the state of Colorado. It was the Opportunity Now grant program. They had a first round opportunity. We were not funded in the first round, but we were funded for $3.5 million in the second round. It was the largest grant that was funded in the second round of funding through Opportunity Now. It is a short timeline. We have 2 years to get our program up and running and move to a sustainable model, which is a big challenge, but we're up for the task. We are partnering with the school district, and we are located in the Park Street School. So that is a building that was renovated with some of the best funding, and it was not being utilized, so we proposed to use that as part of this project as the business incubator location of Emergent Campus. But Emergent Campus extends across the street to the college as well. So with our new library that we have renovated, we are also going to be supporting the businesses of Emergent Campus through a special business innovation training room, meeting space, and a maker space that will be available to all businesses in the community, but particularly support the Emergent Campus businesses. So we're very excited about the work and the opportunities that lie ahead. And I'm going to pass it over to Christine to tell you more about it.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'm Christine Loudon, the Executive Director of Emergent Campus Trinidad. As a role I am really excited about because it's a very exciting opportunity to affect incredible change throughout this county. So we aim to touch all of the school children within Los Animas County, focusing on Trinidad School District to educate them about new career pathways, give them technical skills that is being provided at Trinidad State, and then lead them into the workforce with new job opportunities, hopefully in the tech sector that we are looking to attract here. But it's not just looking to attract new businesses. We also want, okay, I'm getting a little off script, but that's okay. Help the existing businesses here. So I'll get to that in a minute. And we're supported by some great partners in this venture. So it's not just me in the Park Street building waiting for things to happen and making, hoping, putting out calls. Trinidad State is our lead education partner. They were also the lead on the grant and our fiscal agent. Emergent Campus Florence. So Emergent Campus LLC, co-founded by Brad Rowland. He's our lead business partner on this, and we are following their model of success. So we have a very good leader and a very good blueprint for what we're trying to do. We're supported by Trinidad School District. The grant is funding a position within the school district to create the education pathways and the internship program, which I'll talk a little bit more about. Then we also, going into more regional partnerships, we're supporting us. We're also, Pueblo Community College works closely with Trinidad State to identify gaps within our curriculum. So between Trinidad State and Pueblo Community College, we can provide a career pathway for most any student who wants to excel. And Fremont Economic Development Council. They're very important because they've developed over the past 20 years a really strong economic development model. They have a 20-member board of businesses and government and are kind of a neutral partner for economic development in that region. We are also connected with them. And we can all draw on their support and success that they have established as well. And they are regionally focused. And I think to be successful, we are also going to be regionally focused. Data-driven economic strategies is our data partner. They're collecting all the information that's needed for the grant reporting. But we can also call on them for any statistics that we might need. What are the industries that are needing cybersecurity specialists? And they can pull up how many companies within Colorado are looking for those types of jobs and how many of those jobs are there. So we've got data partners. Colorado Education Initiative is a nonprofit that is guiding us on working with the schools to develop strong educational partnerships and career-connected learning opportunities. And then Second 61. Second 61 is a cybersecurity and company and data call center within the military-industrial complex. They have a successful business at Emergent Campus in Fremont, and they will be our anchor tenant at Emergent Campus Trinidad. They have not established their businesses there yet, but we do expect to meet with them the first week of November and get that process started. So we're really excited about that, and that's why they're also a key partner. So this is our immediate leadership team. You'll recognize some of those faces. This is what the inside of our Park Street campus, Emergent Campus looks like. And then this is one of our rooms that are set up for co-working space. So, and anytime you guys want to come up there, I will give you a personal tour.
Nice.
So in a nutshell, what is Emergent Campus? Well, Emergent Campus has three parts, three missions. Our upskilling venture is to create internships for high school and college-age students with local businesses. This is a big focus of my efforts right now as I talk to local businesses and ask them if they'll host an intern. And this is important for our youngsters because they get to have an experience outside of school, working with other adults, being responsible, understanding what it is to show up, follow instructions, be courteous, and to listen and learn and experience. And I think that also creates another part of our community fabric where we have young learners working with businesses throughout the county, and we start to just get a little bit of flow, of energy between different partners that may not always be working together. We also through Emergent, we encourage certificates and accreditations. Trinidad State has just launched a computer information system 2-year degree. They offer 4 specialized certificates. So we are also letting students and adult learners know about these opportunities for them to upskill. And then also just providing the career pathways, which then again is going to be plugging them back into the community for jobs here. Emergent Campus is what we would say is our 612 Park Street location. That is primarily a co-working space, an incubator space for startups, where we're offering for startup companies. You know, a lot of you are business people in here. You know how hard it is. 6 months free rent. The next month, $150 with help for accounting, coaching, looking for employees. What do they do next? So we're providing a lot of business support for those young businesses looking to start out. And then we're a facilitator. We work as a facilitator for businesses who are already here. If they need help, if they need marketing help, if they need to find another employee, we are the boots and the ears on the ground to help the businesses who are already here do a little better. That's good for all of us. And then we serve as a magnifier where we're trying to bring in existing enterprise businesses from northern Colorado who are looking for places to expand or relocate. And the reason why we're great at that, because we have 7 spaces where they could set up temporarily while they look for their perfect place to establish their business. We will work with local workforce center and the schools to help develop the workforce that they might need, and again provide them with a local know-how of how to get things done and where to go to ask for help. And then finally, our Emergent convening mission is to bring some more focus and energy and abundance to this region. Yes, it's the city of Trinidad, but it's also Los Animas County, and it's also Southeast Colorado. In my point of view, when we're successful in any of those, that just brings more abundance here and more opportunities for advancement, more opportunities for funding, more opportunities for jobs. So this is what Emergent Campus is. So we want to create or establish Trinidad as a rural technology hub for southern Colorado. Because tech jobs usually are higher paying. You can do them remotely. We have the capital here, which is our people. And if we train them and we provide opportunities, they can stay here and thrive. That's really the broader mission of what we're trying to do. And tech plays a part in everything. I even had to talk to your tech person here to help me get set up so I can present here today. So there's cloud computing, networking, machine learning, AI, all of these things. Like, oh, tech doesn't apply to us. Well, I bet it absolutely does. Even your auto mechanic, when you go down to get your car fixed, they're plugging it into a computer and doing a computer diagnostic to find out what's wrong. So absolutely tech is relevant to us here, even in this small town. And regardless of the job, preparing our students with a good technical foundation is just preparing them for success. And if we are a rural tech hub, businesses will come here because we have the workforce. We have space for them. We are here to support them. And then there's a lot of technology, successful technology in Colorado. Boulder, the Tech Center, Colorado Springs. We need to pull that down. And we want to be the next place that that extension goes to. And we need to be prepared. So we've kind of covered some of this. High tech does belong in southern Colorado, in rural communities like ours. Proof of this is the success at Emerging Campus in Florence. Our banks, our hospital, heavily rely on tech. Cybersecurity is super important to these types of businesses. And we have those jobs here. Let's fill them with workers from tech. Plus, there's 15,000 cybersecurity jobs open in Colorado already. So the fact that we're going to be getting a cybersecurity company here in Colorado, in Trinidad, is super exciting, because then we can get them plugged into that area of technology, where they can either stay here, start their own business here, or skill up and go on and blossom. And there's the Quantum Initiative in Colorado. How many of you guys have heard of that? So it's a $30 million investment that's going to be coming into Colorado for quantum and machine learning. And that's primarily going to be focused in Boulder and Longmont. But again, if we're on this Front Range corridor, and there's no reason why, if we prepare for it, we shouldn't be able to have some of that success. So that's why it's important to get started now. So we're here talking about economic development because for so long this community has really survived on different types of extraction, primarily natural resource extraction or agriculture. Sometimes tourism, you could think of it as an extraction. People come here, experience, and leave. So let's try to have less extraction and more bringing business here, establishing business here, keeping business here, and keeping our dollars in this community. Of course, tourism and outdoor recreation is really important for where Trinidad is now and going forward, and creating a stronger, more vibrant community for those types of people who are coming here to experience what we have is also part of that, keeping the dollars here. And by having a stronger economic foundation locally, we create more businesses, we create more opportunity, we create more vibrancy, we create better community. And that's really what we want to see happen, and try to create a new kind of cycle here. So, Emerging Campus Trinidad has a couple of nice advantages. So I mentioned before, we are connected to the Fremont County Economic Development Initiative. We can draw on their successes and advice in terms of how we could replicate what they have done here. We're also part of the Southern Colorado Tech Hub, which is part of the Fremont County Tech Sector. So there are currently 3 tech sectors in the state of Colorado. First was Denver Tech, and then Fremont County, and then the third one was Boulder. So that's kind of fun that we got ahead of those big guys. But that shows you that, and this is recognized by the state of Colorado. So we are already plugged in to this tech sector, which means grants opportunities, bigger regional initiatives where Trinidad and Emerging Campus can be part of that. So we can leverage these connections to our advantage already. And then I'm proposing that Emergent Campus can be an independent source of economic development to facilitate city development, county development, as well as regional development. Because we are independent, and our view is just to help the region as a whole. Plus, we can be a focal point for remote workers who may want to relocate here because of the lifestyle and because it's so beautiful. And all the new initiatives we have going on with the state park and the lake, hunting, all of our outdoor recreation opportunities makes this a really great place to live, and it's affordable still. And sometimes those remote workers like to know that, you know, when I'm tired of working at home, I can go somewhere else. I can meet other people who are doing remote work. I can find other people who are in tech. And you might have heard about Tulsa, Oklahoma. So they did the city of Tulsa did an economic development initiative where they were offering $10,000 to anyone who wanted to come and relocate to Tulsa. And guess what? It was wildly successful. Now, I'm not saying that we would do that, but you know, we could create some kind of great incentives for people to come here, to live here, and do their work. Well, you know, maybe they're working for a company in Wisconsin, but they can do it here, and they bring some of those dollars here. And Emergent Campus can provide that focal point and kind of center for them.
If I could just say one more thing. In the Florence office, they've done a little bit of analysis on the impact of having a remote worker, and they have close to 100 people that they've attracted to Fremont County. A good portion of those make over $100,000. So you think about the economic impact of that with the multiplier effect on a community. Like that is a big impact. That's the equivalent of a big company moving in and hiring 100 people, but you aren't having to provide anything for them. They're workers who are all representing different businesses, and so it's more resilient. If one of those companies goes out of business, all of those workers aren't impacted at the same time. So kind of a smart strategy to invest $10,000 for a remote worker to come in and have all of those benefits accrue to your city or your region.
Yes.
So you're fostering sustainability by providing space for innovation, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I can see how that helps the remote tech workers. Does that also help rural and entrepreneurs as well?
Yeah, actually, we want to promote entrepreneurship. So for instance, I feel like there's a couple needs in the community. We need some more bookkeeping and accounting. We need some more marketing, digital marketing specifically. I'm looking for people within the community who are already doing that, and I want to help them grow their business. Whether they come into the physical space of Emergent Campus or not, if we can provide them some business support, help them advertise, help them get the word out, that is also helping our community, and they are an entrepreneur.
And some of the entrepreneurs that have started in Emergent Campus in Florence have now blossomed into larger businesses. One example is Three Rocks Engineering, which is a company you may have heard of. I think they're going to be working with the Love's gas station that's going in. They started in Emergent Campus with 2 people, and now they have 30 people. And they're another company that they've actually advertised a position for our Emergent Campus. They're looking for a civil engineer. If we could find them a civil engineer, they would open up an office in Emergent Campus. They've asked us to help them find workers who are trained in CAD design, computer-aided drafting. So we are going to start offering CAD classes next semester, and we're putting together a program in computer-aided drafting because we've heard this request from other businesses. Another good example of a great company that opened in Emergent Campus is called Barn Owl Agriculture. It's a precision ag company that uses robotics and drones, and maybe you can tell them a little bit more about what Barn Owl is doing.
Yeah, Barn Owl they're super exciting. They're going to be coming and presenting on November 11th to some students, in addition to touring the facilities at Trinidad City College. But they've developed these small robots, essentially. They look like little go-karts or something, about this big, that fit between the rows of crops, where they can program that unit to identify maybe a certain type of weed that is infesting that field. So that robot can either dig it up or and then put on some herbicide, and it's trained to, or programmed, not trained, to identify the crop from the invader. Another application is it can actually plant the crop itself, or if there's an infestation of insects, it can apply specific application of pesticide rather than doing a full crop dusting. So one, it's ecologically healthier, it's more targeted, and it's helping ag with robotics and technology. And it's and youngsters are really interested in this. It's very cutting edge and it has real world implications.
And they're in their, I think, third round of venture capital funding, and it's growing fast. The founder of that company is coming down. She's going to be talking to our students. She helped us build a proposal that we have just submitted to the U.S. Department of Labor for $5.75 million to expand our programs in advanced manufacturing at the college. So if we get this funding, we'll find out in late December, early January, we'll be launching an AAS degree program in robotics and automation, as well as the AAS in CAD design. But we'll get all of the equipment that comes with those programs, because it's high cost equipment, to upgrade all of our construction, our welding, and then we'll expand that into robotics and automation. So it's really kind of bringing our trades programs into the 21st century, because they're all automated now. There is a layer of technology over many of these systems, and even automotive, like you were saying.
So economic development really is the overarching message and goal of what we want to do here. So Emergent Campus is working to align our area partners. That's you. We have presented to the county commissioners. They're excited about what we're doing. And that's why we're here today as well, to tell you about what Emergent Campus is doing and how we might work together to create some unique economic development opportunities. And while you're looking for your next economic development director, I might propose that we can just fill this gap until that plan is in place. And how I see that happening is we could kind of serve as a first touch point. We have meeting space, we have fiber optic connectivity. We would see what their area of interest is. If they need to talk to or ask about a business license, we can put them in touch with the people at the city. They want to meet the council, we'll arrange that meeting. Maybe they have a question that's more regional or directed to the county, and we can put them in touch there. So it's really just to facilitate new businesses who might be wanting to come in to this area. And what is that touch point of where do they start? And how do you give them a really nice introduction and handoff in setting everyone up for success?
I think it's, you know, when you think about counties and cities that have a separate, like economic development corporation that's not housed within the city, it allows them to talk to businesses without having the need to go public right away. So a business might want to sort of scope out the community and understand what they're getting into without having to come to a city council meeting, and that's sort of the rationale behind the EDC model, that some municipalities kind of set up that structure. With this, you really don't even have to set up anything, because Emergent Campus could be that initial contact point just to sort of help them understand what the opportunities are here. And then at some point they would want to have an introduction to City Council when they're a little more educated and aware of what the opportunities are here. So essentially what we're proposing is just for Christine to be that first point of contact for businesses that are looking to move here.
Which makes complete sense. I'm sorry, I don't know for comments or anything, but it really does. Something I've been talking about for quite a long time and kind of preaching about. It's a gap that we need to fill again. We've had this before. We had this separate. We've never had it through the college, which is going to be amazing to have it through there to bring that tech portion back in, because it's something that we were striving for before. The Trinidad Los Animas County Economic Development that we had set up, they did thrive for quite a few years. Mm-hmm. You know, helping to establish our with the partnership with the city and the county, getting up the industrial park, commerce park, getting all those going and running and profitable at that time. We are in a different area, and I'm so glad to see this coming. A partnership between the two would be amazing. I can't speak for everyone else, but economic development is just like a huge passion of mine. To sit back and watch this develop is going to be great. Partnering with possibly us, possibly the county, boards and commissions, Main Street, empowering them and getting them up and going. That is our way to kind of mitigate this, the revenue leakage we have going on, is the amount of money that we are losing to the larger counties. It is just immense. And we have to have people in place to be able to say, we're going to attract these people here. How are we going to keep them here? How are we going to keep them entertained? So we need that. We need that massively. We have to have staple items for them to be able to purchase, to not have to lose that. So it just becomes this revolving and we thrive. Thank you so much for bringing this forward.
I want to just say that we're not proposing replacing any board or commission or Main Street or anything like that. And I want to be clear that we're not tourism. Right. So if you're wanting a festival or something like that, that's not us.
No, the partnerships are just amazing, though.
Yes. But we will be happy to support any festival that is happening.
Please come out to them. They're fun. I enjoyed working
This is really new business development.
Right, and that's what I was saying. It's a part of the puzzle. It's a piece of the puzzle that we need to put together, and it's just going to be. I'm super excited to see you guys do this and bring this down there. So thank you so much for bringing this to our community and working so hard, because I know that's a lot of work.
Well, and it lifts all of us. It really is something that I've been thinking about since I came here, is how can we position the college to really be that economic engine that helps raise the community, that helps our K-12 kids see a path to the future, build a workforce, and an economy that can keep our kids here locally where they can support a family and be in a thriving economy. So that's the end goal.
So you all have a few materials from me. The first is just a little basic information about Emerging Campus and co-working space, what's offered there. Feel free to share that with anyone that you think is interested. And if you have any questions about it, my information is there. Feel free to call me or email me anytime. I did tell you that we're starting the internship program countywide. That's going to start in January. You have a couple of case studies here that highlight 2 interns who were at the Arthur Roy Mitchell Museum over the summer and what their experience was like, as well as a young man from Kim, Colorado, who worked with the county assessor Jody Amato this summer at the courthouse. And I think you'll enjoy reading about both of these experiences. And then finally, Rhonda and I were at the Rad Fest, great festival, giving out information about Trinidad, why you would want to move here as a remote worker. You can scan the QR code and find 9 reasons to relocate to Trinidad. And funny enough, Brad Rowland, Emerging Campus Florence, was in Berlin at a conference last week, and he was talking about at dinner about Emerging Campus, and this woman said, "Aren't you in Trinidad?" Yeah. And he's like, "Well, yes, yeah, we just started there." And she said, "Well, I was there for the Rat Fest and I saw the sign." So we're already world famous. Any questions?
It's amazing.
Thank you, ladies.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, it's
Appreciate
very
it.
helpful. Thank you.
I know it took us a while to get you here, but appreciate you coming, and this is very awesome.
Yeah.
Exciting.
We look forward to having more conversations and seeing what develops. And Rhonda and I are available anytime if you have ideas or want to discuss anything. Thank you. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much.
That concludes the work session for Monday, October 21st. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Presiding Officer Capola. Well done, sir.
Thank you.
A lot of information.
Yeah. You love the technical stuff on the utilities. Yeah, you've got maps and the